Welcome, everyone, to the Kia Knicks postgame show as the Knicks survive. They lose an 18-point third-quarter lead, end up going down by 4 in the fourth, but prevail 102-96 over the Raptors. So what does it all mean in the Eastern Conference? The Knicks are only one game out of fifth. Indiana won and the Celtics won, so the Knicks one game out of seventh, one game in front of ninth place Indiana. The Bulls lost tonight. Knicks are 4 games clear of 10th place Chicago, and by beating Toronto, they're 6 games clear of 11th place Toronto. So a key win. Great to have you with us from our Delta MSG studios. Bill Peter along with Alan Hahn. I'm laughing because it was high anxiety. Wally Zerbiak joins us from his home studio. Well, Tom Thibodeau, it's ingrained in my head when I watch these games. Whether the Knicks are behind or ahead, no lead is safe. And that, again, was the case tonight. But the Knicks prevailed.
It doesn't have to be this hard, though. I mean, it's just that you have an 18-point lead. But in today's NBA, when you're not knocking down a three-point shot, and as we've seen with the Knicks, when they're not hitting threes and teams go to that zone, it is a struggle. The Knicks want to get into the paint. They couldn't do it. You got to give credit to the Raptors in a back-to-back and also undermanned how hard they played in this game. But you also, Wally, give credit to how hard the Knicks continue to play. They never let go of the rope. They keep fighting. We saw this against the Grizzlies. It was the reverse tonight of making sure you didn't let go of this game. You saw 2 teams that knew how important this game was, and it showed all the way down to the very end.
I mean, the defensive effort by the Knicks was phenomenal. Nerlens Noel was all over the court, creating turnovers, blocking shots, just doing everything to just make those key defensive plays to keep the Knicks steadied when they just couldn't make a shot. It was unbelievable. Julius Randle 1 for 8 from the three-point line. And guys, he's turning down open looks from the three. And that's why he's starting to force a little bit offensively into kind of funny situations with double teams coming because he doesn't trust his jump shot. But give the guys credit. They're finding a way to win these big games. This is one that they really, really needed to win. And you know the Raptors almost needed it more because this puts the Raptors pretty far out of the conversation as trying to catch the Knicks, especially with how difficult their schedule is to finish the season, as the Knicks' schedule is very difficult to finish the season. But just a phenomenal win. I mean, this is what Tom Thibodeau does. He figures out a way to pull out these type of games when it got pretty ugly there for some points. I mean, you were like, boy, can anyone make a shot? And then the open shots, when guys were getting them, they were clanking them. And it was like, what's going on? But then the defense is what gets you there. The rebounding was solid again, and a gritty way to get a win. That's big-time New York Knicks basketball.
And Wally makes a great point when you think about what's the schedule remaining, right, is that Toronto has the hardest remaining schedule of all the teams in the East. The team with the second hardest remaining schedule, the Knicks. So it just, again, shows you how important this game was for the Knicks.
All right, so it's a 6-game edge over Toronto. Knicks have 18 games to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it.
No, that's important. And you also look at Chicago going through something right now, 10, because as we know, the 7-10 play, and that's the delineation. That's why we keep saying Toronto, because that's the 11th place team. The delineation now in the 7-10 play-in really is at 10th spot. And actually, the Knicks are also opening up a bit of space between them and 10th. As you know, if 7 and 8, you got to win 1. We got 2 chances to win 1 to get into the top 8. But if you're in 9-10, then you've got to win both games to advance and get into the top 8. So you'll make life harder for yourself if you're in the 9-10.
Don't forget about maybe a 5th or 6th place finish, because the Knicks are only 1 game out of that, Wally, and it was all made possible tonight by the ability to hang in there in the fourth quarter when it looked like it was falling completely apart. As you mentioned, the defense held them in there, and they got just enough. RJ Barrett, again, huge with the game on the line.
I mean, just key plays. And how about the break they got with Malachi Flynn stepping on the baseline? That was huge, and because there it is. I mean, it was 90-83 with that basket counting. But then you come back after the break, there's his heel just barely grazing the line. I mean, a tremendous camera work there. Phenomenal pickup by the officials, who were a little suspect tonight in a lot of ways. And that was a big call, because now it's only a 4-point game, right? And there's Flynn with the 3, and then Rodney Hood, he knocks down that triple. So then that made it 4. But here comes Alec Burks. That big 3 made it 92-87. Then Randall with the slam. 4-point game. The Knicks are up right there by 4. And then Lowry with the basket here cuts it to 1. But then I'll tell you, I don't know why teams are coming off RJ Barrett and doubling on Randall and leaving him open, especially on the strong side corner. That is just bad defense, not knowing your personnel. He's going to hurt you with that 4-point lead for the Knicks, but then a careless turnover, and Siakam just, I don't know what he was doing tonight. I mean, just mindless plays at incredible moments. I can see why Nick Nurse at times is just like, what is this guy doing? I mean, just the decisions that he makes sometimes. He was a second-team All-NBA player last year, was an All-Star last year, and then this year just hasn't been the same player. The decision-making from your star has to be better down the stretch. I mean, give the Knicks credit, defense a ton of credit. They caused some of that. But, phenomenal shot by RJ Barrett. And I think teams are going to stop leaving him alone because he will hurt you every single time if you let him down the stretch of games.
Yeah, Wally, Nick Nurse and Siakam have had some altercations already this season. You can imagine how he feels after this game as well. Though Siakam did help get the Raptors back in this game. But how about RJ Barrett on the role he's been? The last time the Knicks met the Raptors, you remember, he went 0 for 8 from 3, and that was the end of an 0 for 21 stretch. That was New Year's Eve. You think about it, since that game now, we're over 40 games. Since then, he's shooting over 40%. In his last 7 games, he was 3 for 6 from downtown in a game where no one on the Knicks could make a 3. Now in his last 7 games, shooting over 50% from three-point range. It's outstanding what he's been able to do down the stretch, but when it matters most, RJ Barrett makes those shots because it's the stoicism that he shows in big moments, making the free throws late against the Grizzlies, making that knockdown corner 3, just how big that shot was in the moment. He's 20 years old, everybody, and he's a high draft pick, obviously, and all everybody does is say RJ Barrett is not good enough to be on my all-rookie team. He's not good enough to be on your top 25, under 25. He's not good enough to be considered a star player, but you know what he does? You know what he's good enough to do? He's good enough to help a franchise that hasn't won in 8 years get back to 500 and stay in a playoff hunt. That's what he's good enough to do. And that's why I feel like this is a guy you can't overlook anymore. Winning matters in today's NBA, and he makes winning plays. Look at this. Randall now trusts him, and you couldn't say that a year ago and maybe even early in the season. But Randall now trusts him in these big moments, and RJ Barrett is proving himself as a number 3 pick 2 years ago to be a very valuable young player in the NBA for a franchise that desperately needs him to be that.
Yeah, it's just tremendous to see his evolution and his development, because if you remember early on the season, there were a few times where Tom Thibodeau went away for him in the fourth quarter. But he made those key shots in a couple big games to help the Knicks get key wins. And after that, his confidence has just exploded, and the trust that Coach Thibodeau and all his teammates have in him is just there. And that's what it's all about. And he just continues to deliver for this team. Don't forget, Alan, he is a top-notch defensive player, too. His strength at his age really helps him on the defensive end of the floor. And Tom Thibodeau is going to leave you out on the floor if you play defense, and he's learned that. And he's become a tremendous defensive player early on in his career, along with his jump shot just completely taking off. And I think he's going to continue to get better. I think he's going to continue to find a way to score more points in games and make even more of an impact because he's still so young and has some developing to do.
Worth pointing out that Barrett, with the Knicks up 1, hit that 3 with 36 seconds left to put him up 4. And Siakam with that awful double dribble. The Raptors were down 2 with 11 seconds to go. They had an advantage.
Big moment. In
the fast break situation, but they couldn't get anything off because of the turnover for Siakam. A tough play there that worked out well for Tom Thibodeau's Knicks. We're now 27-27 after ending a 9-game losing streak to the Raptors. His post-game comments coming up.